I'd have been a nice acquaintance with him for a long, long, long time. We were out actually on the road with. I was on that tour with Luke Bryan and Thompson Square and Florida Georgia Line for a long time.
Oh yeah,
so
I remember. Well, his wife was Florida Georgia Line's publicist. What's her name? And then they got divorced.
Jensen,
because they were both going in different directions.
That's too bad. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, they've been divorced a while. And Joe Chimay, he's a bass player, and he played with everybody. Like he played some with Pink Floyd and played on all the records. I mean, he's my age. He just does it to have fun. Goes out where he wants to go. Think of who else.
That's cool.
You know, just a lot of different people that just can do it for the fun of it.
Yeah.
You know, they do it once a year.
Soul feeder. When some other thing, I mean, I'm very happy having my career in real time. I plan to do this forever. But it makes me, I enjoy it. And it doesn't like feed your spirit. It's a different kind of thing. You know, it's a business, and I love being around people. That kind of feeds my spirit too. As far as the art thing, you know, there's nothing that can replace. Yeah.
I showed horses. I was just thinking the other day, I'm having my 40th anniversary of owning horses. So I'm not showing now. I might be not as at a high as high as I used to, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, you have your passion and then you have what you have to do.
I think if especially
it gets you in a bad mood.
That's when you start just rotting on the shelf.
You know, I have so much, and I still have 2 horses, but I'm going to get a new horse because my one that I raised, who's now 17, she's just too much for me anymore. I just had a replacement. I can't hit the ground anymore. So, I mean, I'm just like bored, not going out of the house, other than real estate. No, can't. I will. Hi, Teddy.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
Well, we're going to see if we can get this up on screen. And, oh, Yahtzee. If I was a presentation. Which is it, folks? File, view, presentation? Anybody know? F5. Slideshow? Slideshow. Ta-da! Oh my God, it looks gorgeous. Holy cow. Good morning, everyone. I'm Teddy Pins. I'm a realtor here at Village. I've been in the business for 15 years. I am Bobby Maureen's son, which most people know, and I feel very, very blessed and thankful to have learned a lot of this from her. We're going to cover a lot of material today, so I'm expecting to be here for no more than 90 minutes. If you need to leave at any time prior to that, feel free to, but I want to account for plenty of time between representing a buyer choosing or purchasing new construction and representing a builder or representing new construction versus traditional resale. Is everybody in the right place? Cool. We will also, I will make some notes as we go through, and but I've put some highlights together here as far as what we want to accomplish here, steps and process. Some of these things you're going to go over with Bobby next week, and I'm also writing an additional course called What Are We Selling? And I believe one of my strong suits is understanding the construction process and what's involved and the difference in trusses and joists and floor jacks and arm ratings and window specs and things like that. So I think the opportunity in Nashville especially is new construction's made a huge resurgence, and so it's very important that you understand what's involved with that and the differences that you need to consider first and foremost for yourself and getting educated about that so that you can best prepare a buyer of what to expect. And so I just put together like what I believe are the hot pieces here. And so, yes.
Sorry to interrupt, are these going to be available?
I can make these. We can make these available.
Okay, then.
Yep. Yep. But in the interest of time, what I think is helpful, is just take a picture on your phone. We can go through them at the end too, and then save them in an album in your phone. My other hot tip is take a picture of everything in your wallet and put it in a folder on your phone called IDs. If you ever lose your wallet, it'll be helpful. You're welcome. It's all about using your tools. I mean, I leverage the tools so I can be really effective. So setting expectation, you want to prepare the buyer. This takes longer. Obviously, if the home is finished, we can talk about that. But let's say that you're looking for a home, they're open to new construction. I don't need to move immediately. I'm a month to month. This takes longer, and despite it being new construction, there are going to be imperfections. I share with people that these are homes that are built by materials made from the earth. They contain imperfections, and they're built by, many times, by tradesmen that may or may not care as much about the quality control comparative to a car coming off an assembly line. It doesn't work that way. Inspection costs. So I always recommend a 2-stage inspection on new construction, with a third being a blue tape walk. So during the inspection process, I'm going to suggest that you get an inspection pre-drywall. So that would be called rough-ins. And again, you're going to go through some of the terminology, I believe, next week with Bobby about what that is. But rough-ins would be like when they put the plumbing and electrical in the walls prior to closing it up after putting insulation in. That's a critical stage in which some things can get missed, such as framing imperfections and electrical and plumbing, okay? So that process, I'd hire an inspection to be done at that time, and then I would hire a final inspection once it's done. Do not rely on the fact that codes, or it passed codes, or we have our final, means anything, other than it passed a person that came by and took a look, okay? Any questions along the way, too, feel free to raise your hand, and I'm happy to answer. Upgrades. So one of the key things in buying new construction, now I'm going to speak mostly to infill comparative to tract homes in the suburbs, because those follow a little different process, but I'm going to cover some of that today too. But most of these homes, we're seeing that builders are waiting till they're complete to put them on the market, which is smart, because they don't want the hassle of the buyers making selections. Could I change the backsplash tile? Could I add a plug here? All those things are reasonable and easy, but it changes the flow and process. So like at City Lights, we're building condos, you know, these homes, and like 505, they built them all out, right? They didn't allow for customization because it just changes the flow, the workflow process, and provides for an enormous amount of problems that affects cost and just a lot of nightmares. So consider upgrades. A lot of times new construction does not come with a refrigerator or washer or dryer. Prepare your buyers for that, right? I also would suggest prepare them for the other hidden costs that they won't expect, such as window treatments. You could potentially negotiate for window treatments to be included or as an allowance from the builder. Many times they may have a reference or resource that could get you a great buy on those, okay? Selections. So again, most of the time, these builders are going to have everything pre-selected. It's probably been done by a designer or their wife, and they can sometimes be a little defensive about your opinion of those, and so get that in writing and clear if you're buying pre-completion. And the new construction sales contract has spaces and places where you would have things such as allowances, the specs. You cannot be too detailed in this area. You need to know what type of roofing material, what type of insulation, what kind of lighting. Is it LED? See the specs on it. In my opinion, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but when representing new construction, on the seller side, those are some key things to have in MLS. They're not always available, but you look like more of a pro, and you're managing expectations for the buyer if you have those things available on the front end. You just look like more of a professional to that seller. Delays, guaranteed. And how long does it take to build a home?
4 to 6 months.
6 months?
4 to 6.
9 to 12. 9 to 12? Yeah. The word I always use in this business is, it depends. Everything depends. It depends. Will they take $225? It depends. So Everything depends. Think about diapers. It depends, okay? The thing is that obviously, and depending upon when they're buying it or you're getting in early enough, bless you, they may not have these things out of the ground, okay? And sometimes even once they're out of the ground, that could be a problem too. Let's see here. So delays. I would project for on an HPR. Anyone not familiar with an HPR? Don't be shy to raise. Okay, good. So HPR is 2 on 1 lot. Those tend to average between, if you're seeing 4 months, you're doing good. I think 6 is a good estimation. I think on larger homes, even non-custom, it would be more like the 9 to 12. Okay. Infill versus tract homes. Infill is going to be something typically where someone has bought a lot within the city or within a community. They've tore something down and they've brought in a new home. You'll see some homes around here, some posts on Facebook, such as the one here on Blair, where they've tore everything out of it and a roof and some old studs remain. Why is that? It's in historic. It's in historic. Somebody make this clear for me. Is the word historical a word?
Yes.
Would that be how you use that? I put it through historical.
Yes.
Okay. Every time he says that, I go, you put it through historical? Historic. Okay, so that's how I roll. Infill versus tract. So tract homes, typically they're going to take down a plat of land, an old farm. They're going to subdivide it. Sometimes that's a different land developer that simply buys land, subdivides it, puts in curbs and sewers, and stubs out water, and then they allow for the builders, and sometimes various builders, such as Beazer, Fox Ridge Trees, to come in and buy a section of land or take down lots, and then they'll build their product. And sometimes they have reservations for a certain amount of lots within that community. Okay? All right. Spec versus custom. Again, as you're talking to this buyer, you might want to, the first thing is establish timelines. Obviously, the number one question when you start working with a buyer or you have that phone call is what? When do you want to move? Yeah.
How much you want to spend?
How much you want to spend. So for timeline, I use how soon are you needing a home? Right? So because to me, need versus want are very important distinctions. So I'm very intentional with the language I use regarding this on the phone call is how soon are you needing a home? Who is the home for? How many other people are going to be involved in this decision? Who is the home for? I think it's a nice way of saying, like, right, is it going to be for, you got goats, you got in-laws, things like that we need to accommodate for. Spec versus custom. So spec is a speculative build for a speculative buyer. So they're gonna build the home with a potential buyer in mind versus custom where a buyer is going to hire a builder to build them a home. This process, you can almost double the timeline just because of the human and buyer involvement of what it takes to make selections and which create a lot of delays. And then you need to prepare them that they're probably going to spend, my guess, 50% more than the beautiful home that they would walk in and buy as a spec because it's done. Right? If we're left to build the camel or the horse, it turns into a camel and it's only $1,000 more. Everything's just $1,000 more. Maybe we should do it. Let's just pre-wire it for AV. Let's get the bigger stove. Let's get this lighting. So this is a very expensive route and one that you need to really consider your involvement in that on the front end. So before we move on, has anyone represented a buyer in building a custom home? What were some pitfalls or considerations that you found in that process?
Tons. I mean, delays, absolutely first. Weather things happen, something, there's a bunch of landscaping, terrible weather came up, messed up a bunch of stuff, and then, well, how are we going to replace it? And a lot, costs went up by their own admission.
Yeah.
What I experience almost every time is like, this house is getting too expensive, but it's by their own choice, but they don't know how to wrangle themselves in. So it's frustrating because you want to say, well, you chose that, but you can't really combat them.
Right.
But it's a trickle down effect. One thing makes another thing. Well, if we're going to do this, we got to do this, and before they know it.
Right? yeah, all of a sudden our garage doors look silly on this $1 million home, so now we need carriage doors. So this is a great pen.
The visual link.
Manage expectations. So I think some of the ways that we can help them in that respect, and I always believe our role really is to help them get what they want. The challenge is helping them understand and manage what they want. So in some of that is looking at those things on the front end, and one of those ways is going to be with, really key is a budget. And the builder, if they've done this many times, even if they haven't, you're going to want to get this from them, is the allowances. The problem is, how do you know if a $20,000 appliance budget is suitable, or a $30,000 cabinet budget? You don't, right? So the ways in which I would try to help that once you get involved in the process would be ask that builder to see other homes that are comparable size and type, and what were the allowances for that home? Was it a custom? Did they make changes? You like this tile setup, right? What did that tile do? Tile varies wildly. I mean, it's just bananas how different tile is. Hardwoods, roofing, other things, fairly similar. Insulation, foam versus traditional, pretty different cost there, but metal roofs. I have a buddy that just got a bid for a metal roof on a ranch, and $70,000 for a metal roof. I about croaked. I said, how much was it for a shingle? 30K, which still was a lot, it's a big home, but nonetheless, getting budget allowances is going to be really, really key, especially in a custom process. Other considerations, I don't see us doing a ton of custom typically in the city right now with the demand. Most people are just building specs and then people are buying at some stage. But it's being mindful of to how you get paid. Because typically, or sometimes, where do you want to be? We don't know. You just want like 4 acres. Okay. So there's a lot of things to get involved, to be considerate of that. And what I would prepare you is just don't get involved in some within these next couple of weeks is immerse yourself in learning new construction and what the process is. I'd start with more of infill, understanding important, because many times you're only going to get paid on the land purchase. You are a line item on the builder's budget. When they see your line, because many times the builder might wrap his service as a percentage into the build versus have a line item as a management or construction. Does anybody have ideas or have seen what percentages are for build? 20 to 30. It's getting harder and harder for people to make some of those margins on some of the infills, but we've seen a big resurgence in the last, since I think middle of January. HPRs are flying off the shelf and they're happy again, right? They're making money. So be mindful of that. Custom
people get land.
Yes.
Build on.
Yes.
But then I said, good luck to you, God love you, you have a nice house. I'm not sure how we continue in the process, or why the hell anybody would want to.
Yeah, that's
so. When you mention getting paid that kind of way.
Through that process. Does anybody have any ideas?
You have resources on the builders.
Okay.
You have someone that can actually construct the house.
Okay, so you might have recommendations or vendors. Okay.
And you understand the process in whatever municipality you might be in.
Okay. Probably more knowledge than them, but the builder probably definitely has more than us.
Right.
So if the situation is meet all your friends to sell that house, that's really what you want to do. It is one of the leading causes of divorce, is a bill. And I tell them that. How much do you like each other? Do you want to at the end? Because it is just miserable. You want to divorce yourself, having done it several times, I know this. But you have knowledge that could help them evaluate designers and selections and trends and keep them potentially on a budget. But I will tell you, the value exchange for you may not. Okay. The hunt. So we're representing a buyer, managing and searching Facebook groups.